Namaste and welcome to this exciting episode of Satyology Debunking Mythology. Sat means truth, Logos means a study or science, Satyology means a science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means a science of fake lie imagination or study of fake lie imagination. Just understand, if you call your history as mythology yourself, which is imposed by colonial masters, then you are actually telling to the world that you have no history. So stop telling it, especially from Vedic or Puranic or even the Mahabharata and Ramayana histories. All have been archaeologically proved, astronomically proved. Archaeoastronomy is the field in which mostly Vedic scholars have to work on it because the rest of the people have no astronomy, right? So today I have a very, very special guest, and we are talking about Hanuman's visions and Hanuman's description about something in the past which happened. Welcome, Rupaji. So before Rupaji starts, I explain you Rupaji is an original researcher. She researches and brings out original thoughts without copying others. It is her own view into this Shastra, Vedic Shastra, especially Rig Veda. And today she's bringing out the Ramayan's viewpoint on Hanuman's. Now, before we start on that, Rupaji, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aditya for calling me.
So, when we talk about Hanuman, Hanuman is known to be a Pandit, is known to be a Pandit. And Ram, when he meets Ram for the first time, Ram recognizes it, tells you Lakshman that he has read all the Vedas, he's not. So, he is already well aware of astronomical positions, right?
Ji, ji. And not only the positions, but also he is well versed in 9 languages. So by the Ramayana time, we know that people are speaking various languages during that time. It is not that just Sanskrit is being spoken, but that is one of the spoken language also during that time.
So, Rupaji, we'll get started on this, what you have
Yeah,
shared.
sure, sure. Let me uh, share this slide. Can, can you can you see
Yes,
that? Yeah.
yes, we can see that.
Okay. So this is all about astronomy memory of Nishtya, that is Swati Nakshatra, with Hanuman in Ramayana. And this memory suggests an event memory from 58,000 BC or before present. Um, that is something very amazing about Ramayana, is that it is carrying few of the predecessing histories also with it. So when we find that Rama is mentioning Agastya Lopamudra also, he is mentioning Agastya Vindhyalore also. So that is the predecessing history that is happening during 19,000 BCE, when Agastya crosses Vindhya towards its southern course. Now, with that, we also have the human histories in Ramayana. Ram is talking about Kartavya Arjuna with Sahasrabahu, with the name Sahasrabahu, not exactly the name Kartavya. And this appears also to be a predecessing history in Ramayana. So we need to again reread Ramayana to understand what else are the predecessing histories present in Ramayana. Just like Mahabharata has huge, humongous tales which goes in the preceding cycles, like something happened before. Uh, those histories are there. So astronomical histories are also there, like Kritikas and the birth of Subramanya, the birth of Kartikeya. So these are present in Mahabharata also. But Mahabharata has humongous, more sphere of histories, and as it is said that if anything has to be found out about Indian history, then read Mahabharata. Ramayana has very secluded memories and very isolated few memories. It's not always boasting of all the kings who had happened in the Ikshvakus also. So it's not happening something like that in Ramayana. So it's Rama's Ayan. That means his travel, his travel to south and to fetch Sita again from Lanka. That is the whole story. Yet, Hanuman speaks of a metaphor here, and that is what we will be exploring how this word Nishtya becomes Swati and what are the memories associated with the Swati Nakshatra in Rig Veda, Taittiriya Brahmana. Especially, I will be taking Taittiriya Brahmana only. It has in Shatapat and Vajasanai also, but I'm not taking that. And how this name is preserved in this form only in Taittiriya Brahmana. Taittiriya Brahmana doesn't mention Swati, it only mentions Nishtya. So that is how we will try to understand why Hanuman is having this memory of Swati uh, uh, of before his time. That means that is the preceding history of the predecessors which he has received in this form. And that is what metaphor he uses for himself. So let's see. We come across Nishtya and Nishtya word thrice in Rig Veda, and you will be amazed to note that one word appears in sixth mandala that is always held upon as one of the most oldest mandala uh, of Rig Veda. So the whole Rig Veda has this different mandalas, 1 to 10, but this Nishtya word first appears in sixth mandala. And it doesn't corroborate that, or it doesn't try to tell that it is saying about the same Swati nakshatra, but it is telling about something foreign or foreigner or external is appearing in front of them, before them. So that we need to understand that how this word evolved. So this word was evolved in the worldly sphere, and after that it evolved into Taittiriya Brahmana as one of the nakshatra. So we need to understand. In between, it comes in the eighth mandala as Nishtya word itself, and uh, the whole of the mantra appears to say about something which has moved out of its place in a very drastic manner, and how it has to be used, or uh, how it has to be seen. And it appears to me that it has an astronomical essence also, because Rigvedic mantras have so many layers of understanding. And one of the layer is astronomical also. As in the last one of the talks I shared about Rishikas, where again Ashwin Kumars are mentioned by one of the Rishika, Ghosha Kakshivati, and she is mentioning Vishpala also, of probably of the previous times, where the legs are being provided to her by the Ashwins. So if we take this Ashwin to be the Ashwini nakshatra, that is happening around 28,000 BC, and Vishpala can be happening more into more deeper antiquity, if they are always relating this to the new year or some kind of a pointer where this nakshatra is being cited with the help of the Surya. So that is what the contention is. So this is how we get this word, and it means niso gate, nirgato varnashrama shramebhya nishtaya chandaladi. That means the one which is coming out of the out of its group, and it's almost external, or almost behaving as a foreigner, which is very weird kind of a thing happening in a society, or the group, those who were living in the Rigvedic time. So they were called Nishtya. So the other group, the other people who were not Vedic, who were not harboring the Vedic culture, they were called Nishtya. And this is what, and this is how this word evolved in Rig Veda. One of the word definitely from the eighth mandala is pointing towards the nakshatra itself, but it is yet to be understood in a deeper manner. Now we come to the Brahmanas because Brahmanas are the extension of the Vedas. So we need to understand this word more specifically. And here we see that when nakshatra, a few of the nakshatras were used to create a Purusha, in that Nishtya was forming the Hridaya, and she was given away with Vayu. That means she was more prominently known to be a Vayu uh, based uh, nakshatra. Why Vayu based nakshatra? Because Vayu has a vega, it has the velocity, it has the uh, uh, more probably having the more proper motion of the star, which is being seen by our sages and has been recorded from a very deep antiquity. And that is why Vayu is being associated with Nishtya. So it is the Devata of Nishtya, that is Swati Nakshatra. In Taittiriya Brahmana, we see that this word is specifically meant for Swati, and we don't find Swati as a specific word in Taittiriya Brahmana. So it is having some older memories that it is associated with Vayu because it is having Veg, it is having the velocity, and our sages are definitely visualizing that and noting that because of this huge proper motion, it is shifting, and it has shifted from a group towards something else. So it the name came up, Nishtya. So we already saw the evolution of the Nishtya word as the external, foreign, or something else, which is not belonging to the Rigvedic people. Uh, and the same name is now being applied in the nakshatra system also, and the name is given to Swati. Now, what is happening in today's time? How Swati is being visualized? So, if you see in the sky, you will see the Saptarishi, and we have already taken so many times about Saptarishis and Kritikas and the connection. And in your talk only, we have talked a lot about how Saptarishis are being named as Saptarishis, and there is an evolution from Riksha to Saptarishis, and that is very much visible in the Vedas and also Brahman. Now we are talking about the Saptarishi and the Arcturus connection. So this Arcturus here that you see, the red dwarf kind of a huge red ball, that is known as Arcturus, and this is Swati Nakshatra in today's time. And you will see that it is very easy to locate because of the Saptarishi itself. That makes an arc, and that is why the name is Arcturus. Now let us go back into time from where she became a Nishtya. So she was to uh, expel some group. She was to be expelled, or she was herself moving from that group towards a new group, and she was behaving very differently, and this was being noted by our sages, and that is why the name comes Nishtaya. So I went back into time, and I was going back and back, and I found that amazing that this Arcturus was in the right side of the Saptarishis during 58,000 BC. So you can see this. I have created an orange box here. This is telling us the time when its BV, that is color index, was different from today's time. That is in today's time it is red, So the color was very bright during that time, and it was at the left side of the Saptarishi, and it was one of the very nearest pole stars. So one can understand that the pole star groups are different star groups which appear on that circle, that is the NCP circle. There are many pole stars situated. One is Vega also, that we always discussed for Ramayana times, also Brahma Rashi. And likewise, this Swati Nakshatra was one of the Dhruvatara, or was behaving like a Dhruvatara, not Dhruva point, but it was a not pole point, but it was a very much a pole star and acting like a pole star, and it was guiding light for the north during 58,000 BC. So now, from that time, when our sages were recording this, and they saw that she's behaving very weirdly, she's coming towards some other group, and then she was assimilated in the 28 nakshatra system, and probably before that 34 nakshatra system also during the Rigvedic time. We see that there is an evolution of this word there in Rigveda itself. And now we see, now we can connect the dots. Now Rigveda is there, the Taittiriya Brahmana is there, and it is only naming it as Nishtya. The Swati word has not yet come in a full-fledged form in Taittiriya Brahmana. And it is during that time, it is left of the Saptarishi. Slowly it is crossing, it comes towards Saptarishi, and then it crosses and it goes towards the right side of the Saptarishi. In today's time, it is in the right side of the Saptarishi. And it is now coming nearer to the ecliptic. It has not yet come completely. So, if our sages were visualizing this for a long time, then it can say that from one group, she has left as a pole star, and now it is coming towards the other group, which is the stars on the ecliptic. So, one is used for the actual precession, and the other is used for the precession of equinoxes. So, where the sun and the star get merged with each other, and during the equinoxes, that shows that the precession is happening, precession of equinox is happening in this certain star for 960 years. So this is what now she's behaving. But she's still outside the ecliptic. She has not yet reached the ecliptic. It will take more time for her to reach the ecliptic. So this is the memory about Swati of leaping from the pole point towards the ecliptic. That is a big and huge leap. And this star is the one which begets us an important message that she is having a great velocity, and that is why her deity is Vayu. So in the Brahmanas we come Yatha Taren Duritani Vishwa Duram Asmat Shatravo Yantu Bhita. And her version is now being taken into कि इस तरह से हम शत्रु को भी जो है डरा के हम भगा सकते हैं. So something what happened with her is now being used as a prayer for shatrus also. And it is very well understood, Yathatare Induritani Vishwa. So that is something very interesting about Nishtya. And in the Taittiriya Brahmana only, it is saying that Nishtaya Shrunotu. So something very interesting is now developing, that now we understood that there can be a memory where the Swati has come out of some certain group and she's now coming to other certain group. And this is now remembered by Hanuman. So what we saw is this in today's time, and what we saw is the Arcturus during 58,000 BC, which was a pole star, and now we can compare that how much distance it has in the celestial globe, how much distance it has covered. And that is why the Swain iti, um, Atiti iti, Swati. So that is what the Trikanda Shesha tells us about, and the other lexicons also tells us about. And it also tells us about that now it is like a kumkum. Now it is Swati is uh, in the Trikanda Shesha. It is specifically mentioned that her color is like a kumkum, and certain stars are having this color. Now that has become Swati. So the name variation you can see from Taittiriya Brahmana to the today's lexicon, and they have well preserved the whole of lot what was happening with Swati from Rigveda till the lexicon times. So lexicographers noted this, and now Hanuman notice. Hanuman notices Bhavishyati hi me pantha swate hai pantha ivambare. Then my flight path will become like that of star Swati. So this is the whole travelogue of, in fact, the Nishtya Nakshatra becoming a Swati Nakshatra. And now we see that this name is prominently coming up in the later Samhitas also, Atharva also, and as well as in Ramayana also. So the whole evolution, you can see that there is a complete evolution about the Nishtya and Swati Nakshatra. When I speak about 58,000 BC, and last time when we talked about 34,500 BC for King Brihadratha, people ask me a very genuine question that, okay, you when you say about all these times, this is Upper Paleolithic time and Pleistocene times, and how can people be like living in those times with the stone tools and everything? uh, in no way they were having any architecture, or how they would have been like living or inhabiting places, and still they can have such a sophisticated language, and they are recording all these things in a very these are the humongous things which are being recorded. So I have very briefly talked about this in the previous talks also with you in the Brihadratha episode, and in the Rishika episode with Anujaji in TCN Media. People can go there and watch about the Rishikas there. So there I couldn't mention this, but we have evidence of very special footing in Rivat Valley, which is the river Son, that is Sushoma, Rigvedic Sushoma River in Pakistan and Afghanistan side. So there you find a very well preserved one layer of footing, and that is being dated for 45,000 BP. So people were aware of how to make their dwellings from those times, and that was the Upper Paleolithic times, and also from beyond that. So this was the time before Brihadratha. So if Brihadratha is using the words Rajju and Vatarajunam and things like that, and post, and he's saying that the all stars are drifting away from that point and those longitudinal points. So the rope was already discovered. One can go into the archaeology section and try to understand when the rope was discovered. And in the Indian peninsula, you find the oldest of the footings, which is the oldest in the world, that is from the 45,000 BC. And Swan River, that is the Sushoma River, that was the Swannian archaeological culture is very much similar, like Madrasian architecture, archaeological culture in India are very old. very, very old. And it appears that the Homo erectus, and after that Homo sapiens, and everyone evolved, and they were continuously inhabiting these areas like the Sushoma River or the Narmada Valley, and even the southern areas where the great horses are found, Andhra horses, their remains are being found. So, in nutshell, what we understood from the Brihadratha thing, that was the H haplogroup, which is very deeply rooted in India, and it had spread it all along the Central Asia till Gibraltar, that we saw in the last episode also, and we saw that how they carry all these memories. So, but we are not able to decipher that. That is our limitations, that we are not able to understand what Vritteva stands for, probably for the smog and the clouds due to the volcanic eruption and something like that. And the coming of light is all about the Indras or Brihadrathas uh, strongholds, which are bringing them back, and that memory has been associated with the human forms also, and that is being preserved in Rig Veda. So we saw different memories that are preserved in different brahmanas, and then we saw that this memory. Now let us connect with the whole thing. We are seeing Nishtya from 58,000 BC. She's in another varnashram, and she is now leaving that, and it's coming towards ecliptic, becoming a nakshatra rather than a pole star. And from Nishtya, now we come back to like the architecture that we found, the foundation 45,000 BC. Then in 34,000 BC, 34,500, we come across Brihadratha, and who is again fighting with the Yadus and Turvasus also, and kind of there is some kind of a problem with them. And we see all these are documented there. We just need to look into these facts and try to understand what exactly was happening. Even the Nishtya word, when it is happening during 58,000 BC, it appears that there had been a confrontation with the Nishtya people also. So some kind of different layers what Rig Veda has, and the evolution of the word that is coming up from Rig Veda is being associated with the stars also. So it's all about a great history in a very different layers are being preserved in our scriptures. We need to look into them very deeply. We should, in fact, we should look into that with different lenses, of course, with the lens of science, archaeology, mathematics, of course, which is now coming into picture. So there is a continuity of older memories in older scriptures also, like in Ramayana, what Hanumanji is having this memory of leaping towards Lanka, and he will be taking a flight path like Swati, and he will be very fast like Vayu, and that is why Vayu is also getting associated with Hanuman, and Vayu is getting associated with Nishtya, and he's using this metaphor, uh, which is an older memory that different generations have kept, and he's also having the same memory to use it as one of the metaphors. So this is something amazing about today's talk, and I will just conclude it here. So I place it between 60K to 50K BCE, and this is the time when many things are happening, and we will take one by one what was happening during those times. And today I will stop it here. Thank you, Aditya. If you have some questions, we can take.
Yeah. So the very great presentation, and also it brings antiquity back in the ancient Indian history with the dates, also some dates actually.
Some
And
yes.
the Western academic world has no idea, because they are stuck in the 4000 BC time frame. They're very stuck that 4000 BC. Before that, there were no humanity living. Everybody was throwing stones and everyone was cooking in the caves, and this was a caveman philosophy, and which might be true in most of the Europe, but in other places where the weather is good, people can stay under the trees also in the night too. So,
Definitely.
so the Eurocentric model has really affected everybody else because of a very big propaganda due to colonization. And till date, we are trying to justify, we're trying to prove. Actually, they need to start proving, and we need to ask them proper questions. Whether where did you
Exactly.
come from? Why did you speak Sanskrit? If you are, why is Sanskrit not the original language of Europe if they came here? These questions are not asked by us. So when do you think that we will be able to ask such questions to them?
uh, we need to actually have real gutsy kind of peer reviewers, in fact, so that we can whatever papers we are producing, at least they should read it with that kind of open mindedness. And if I'm speaking about nishtya, so they should not be like, oh, it's completely rhetoric, it's a garbage in and garbage out kind of a thing, which was happening in Bharati with Parishad also. So what they think is, even the great, very good Sanskritists and all, uh, they think that nothing happened before 4000 BC, and such sophisticated language like Sanskrit cannot happen before that. So that is the mindset now we have. Other than that, we in the microscopic or macroscopic form, 4,32,000 years Kali Yuga, and there we are very comfortable, and we are also very comfortable with Ramayana's other things, Hanumanji and Hanuman Chalisa is coming up, and so many books are coming up, and that kind of adhyatmic kind of a thing is more happening, rather than realistic kind of a thing is also present in Ramayana, and that should be taken into account as a debate or kind of at least presentation, something like we are doing, Nilesh is doing. So if Nilesh has taken this as 12,000 BC, that is a benchmark. So this is very old history already. And now, before that, Hanuman is having this metaphor, and that is not from the later thing. It is happening something from beyond his time, in preceding times. So Hanuman can only use those metaphors now. These people need to understand why he is using such metaphors. Why he is not using some other nakshatra instead of Swati, which can be seen leaping like, Yeah. So those are few things, few questions that always arise in my mind. But I don't think people have that kind of this perspective has to come, and we need to feed these perspectives so that the next generation takes up and create more reviewed papers. In fact, these are much needed, and it should get recognized, of course.
Yeah, that's true. Because see, the Western world is like a frog in a well, and they are swimming in the world. Most of the Western academics, they're trying to look up to them and approve your theory. No intelligent man will do, especially them who are colonizers. Most of them, USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. These are all colonized colonies. Till today, they're the colonies. The
And these
natives.
supremacies, na, these are like kind of supremacy in everything. So they are completely governing. Either you take the genetic side or anything, you will find that India is nowhere mentioned.
No,
South Asia. So the word will emerge like South Asias are coming in, and there won't be in the genetics also. You won't find that they're using completely a word India, or say the earlier Pakistan, which was India. So they will never mention that.
no,
I'm
they
very happy, at least, that they are taken, these uh, American archaeologists and British archaeologists who are taking this Rivat Site 55 as 45,000 years old. Had it been in India, आप आप लिखवा के रख लीजिए कि वो 45,000 वो लिखेंगे ही नहीं उसको. It is better that it was in Pakistan, and that is why they are using that word. 45,000 before present.
No, the point is that the most of the Indian history is compromised by Indians, actually, not by
Percent.
the Americans or anyone else. Like, what stops the Indian Education Ministry to block access to Harvard or any other Western college or Oxford, to be precise? Because they are teaching. See, the American school curriculums are built on a colonization propaganda. Like, till date, not a single Native American language is being taught in mainstream American schools. They are taught French, they are taught Spanish, they are taught English, they are taught German, but not any of the Native American languages. No Native American customs are being taught. And the same with UK also, because UK, the original Celtics, the original Franco-German tribes, the original, what do you call it, Gauls, people who would you say colonized UK, none of their languages are being taught. They were not speaking English. The Irish, the most of the Irish colonization is also not being taught. So the point is why they are excluding India is because they already take it for granted that these are going to fall. These are our slaves, academic slaves, and they are going to continue to talk. It's sad to hear for an Indian historian or academic, but that's a
Okay.
fact. If you talk to an
Exactly.
American academician, you and I, and we are all going live in many of these colleges, you'll be shocked to see that India is nowhere in the picture. 1.3 billion people are nowhere in the picture. And when the Indian scholars continue their line of thought, because they're getting money or scholarship from there is a scholarly consensus, which is an automatic colonization platform, where they will accept 5 scholars will accept you only if you meet their criteria. But there is no system of Indians reviewing their curriculum. I mean, the entire human rights hypocrisy will stop in 1 second if we start
Exactly.
reviewing their curriculum. So great presentation about Nishtya, and
Thank you.
also Sri Ram tells Lakshman very clearly that Hanuman knows, has read Vedas properly. So he
Ji,
was very well. That means the Vedas existed before his time, very clearly.
very clearly. Ji.
And the Dashrath Maharaj Putreshti Yagya was done through the mantras of Atharva Veda, very clearly
Exactly.
mentioned.
Very
So,
clearly.
just because they were put in written form by Vyasdev, but they did exist before that too. So thank
Exactly.
you, Rupa ji, as usual. And
Thank you.
I think all your Rishika and other videos are available on our playlist also.
Ah, okay. So
Yeah.
nice.
So there is a playlist which Rupa, your in your name, and all the past videos are there together in one place. So thank you, Rupaji, for coming on the show, and thank
Thank
you
you.
for
Thank you
viewers for
so much.
watching it. Do let us know your feedback on YouTube when it comes on YouTube after editing. Namaste. Thank you.